Oh, hello again. Um, as we're coming up to Halloween, I've got this very spooky story. Thought you might like it. I mentioned earlier the three types of writing a story. Um, Sometimes you get an idea, and they're quite hard because you've got to find an ending. This is something. This is one of those stories. It took me nearly 10 years to think of how I was going to end this. The other types of stories, of course, the easiest ones are the ones you've got an ending and you can actually write towards the ending. They're the easiest ones. And anyway, this is a little bit longer than the normal stories, but I had great fun thinking about this. And as I said, it took me nearly 10 years to get a reasonably good ending. I hope you like it. It's called Knock Knock, Who's There? Read by me, copyright by me, Al Donaldson. Hope you like it. It began nearly 2 decades ago. Something unusual that became bizarre. Why me? Why here? It has claimed the lives of 10 people, but I don't believe it's dangerous. No one knows what happened to them. They just disappeared. I've not told anyone, not even the authorities, what I've seen. They've come and looked. It's even been investigated, but luckily it's been dismissed as an illusion. The people who've seen it and are still alive have been ignored as victims of hallucinations. I know it's real. I've seen it. It knocks, letting me know it's still there. I think it's waiting for me. There she goes again. Okay, okay, I'm coming, I shout. I hope she doesn't notice the irritation in my voice. What she wants is not important. Well, it isn't for me, it is for her. The time is getting nearer. I can sense it. I wonder if she senses it too. I take her yellow, withered hand. Her face is drawn, not the face of the woman I married, but still the same person. We'll meet again, she says. You're going to burst into song now, are you? I laugh. She smiles. You know what I mean. I'll be waiting for you on that lovely beach. Moira's lovely beach was the beach we went to on holiday. We discovered it by accident on the west coast of Scotland. The sands were white and stretched forever. The weather was glorious, and there was no other soul around for miles. Yes, you be waiting for me, I said. Then she smiled and died. At the funeral, my son and daughter made polite overtures about how I was going to cope, but they didn't care. More interested in how much the bungalow would fetch if I sold up. You could give this place a makeover, my daughter said, sounding like one of those designers off the television. I'd be up to my arse in chintz, I interrupted. Father, you're so crude. She went off in a huff. But not to be outdone, she must have had a word with my son, because 5 minutes later he started to give me GBH, or grievous bodily harm of the ear hole. I gave the usual grunts, which meant sod off, I've got other things to do. The months progressed, and I started to get out more. I started to go to the local pub. I joined the darts team. I even took up bowls. I started to make friends, renew acquaintances. I had a barbecue in the summer, invited the darts and the bowls team round. We had a lovely time. No one said anything, but I could see my home through their eyes, and I realized my daughter had been correct. It did need a makeover. Peeling paintwork and wallpaper that was in fashion 10 years earlier was very bad on the eyes. I announced to all that I was on the lookout for a good painter and decorator, and a few days later there was a knock on my front door. 2 men stood huddled in the doorway. "Hello, we understand that you need painters and decorators," said the taller of the 2 men. The smaller man kept looking over his shoulder. "Yes, come on in." They heaved a sigh of relief and shot past me into the living room. I was impressed when the taller man went straight to the windows. I thought he was evaluating the state of the paintwork. It turned out he was looking to see if anyone was watching. I told them what I wanted doing, and they agreed. When I asked what it would cost, the smaller man said, "Pay us what you think it's worth." The taller man was called Robbie, and the smaller man was called Bobby. Bobby asked, "Is all the work inside?" I said it was, and he breathed another of his sighs of relief. It was only later that I found out that Ronnie and Bobby were the worst builders in the country, and at the job before mine, they had managed to wall up a client's cat and wrongly wired the doorbell, so whenever someone called, unless they were wearing rubber boots, there was a high chance of electrocution. Needless to say, the client was not pleased, and if it had just been a little old lady, they might have got away with it. Unfortunately, this little old lady had a psychopathic son who was out for vengeance. Hence was the work inside and out of sight of any knife-wielding psychotic murderer. They came the next day and started stripping the walls. I was in the kitchen with a lady friend of mine from the bowls team, from Bowls Club, Ethel Conway, who said she'd give me a hand choosing paper, paint, that sort of thing. Ronnie came into the kitchen, paper stripper in his hand, looking troubled. "Problems?" I asked. He opened his mouth to speak, then shut it. "You better see for yourself." When we got to the living room, I was pleased to see the walls stripped of paper, and then you got to it. Bobby looked at me, then at it. So there we all stood, all 4 of us, looking at a door in the wall. "Strange place to have a door," Bobby said. "Where does it lead to? Have you tried to open it?" said Ethel. "It's not got a handle," said Ronnie. "It doesn't lead anywhere. It's on an outside wall." "What the heck is it doing there?" I said. "I've seen some funny things, but never a door in situ like that," said Bobby. "I never noticed anything strange about that wall. We moved in, and soon after Moira became ill. Never really used this room much," I told them. The door was black and panelled, the sort of door you see at 10 Downing Street. No knockers, no handle, no number 10, just shiny black. If you're looking for it from the outside, you just see a brick wall. "We could make a feature of it if you like," said Bobby. "We'll see," I said. The next day Ronnie and Bobby didn't turn up, which always fills you with dread when workmen disappear halfway through a job. I found out later that, pricked by conscience, they had gone back to the little old lady with a qualified electrician, who returned the money she'd given them for the job with a grovelling apology. The psychopathic son was taken aback at having the object of his desire taken away from him, i.e. their guts. The little old lady accepted all that Ronnie and Bobby had to offer and slipped the leash back on her son. The following day, when I came back from the shopping, they were all back at work. Ronnie and Bobby and Ethel were singing at the top of their voices. Ethel had taken a shine to Ronnie. As decorators, they were first class. The living room was a picture, and the added feature of a door in the wall was outstanding. "We were thinking," said Ronnie, "maybe when they built this bungalow, they ran out of bricks, so they used this door instead. Interesting theory, but why cover it up? It's a nice door." I didn't have long to wait for an answer. Rosie, my daughter, and her brood, Tommy and Poppy, turned up to stay for a week. "An emergency," she said. Ronnie and Bobby said they'd come back to finish the rest of the work when they'd gone. The second night, I was awoken by an almighty scream. I leapt out of the bed and found my daughter nearly hysterical, screaming at the top of her voice. I took both her hands. She stopped screaming and started to sob. After I'd got a couple of brandies down her neck, she told me that she'd been woken by something knocking. "On your bedroom door?" I asked. At first, I thought it was, but it wasn't. I thought the kids were awake and playing about, but they weren't. They were fast asleep. The knocking continued, and I realized it was coming from the living room. It was only when I got into the room that I realized that someone or something was knocking on that door. "What? The door in the wall?" "Yes. I thought maybe a bird or some animal was trapped behind it. As I got closer, the door opened, just for a second, and then slammed shut. That's what scared me, it opening and slamming shut." I felt a bit dumbstruck till logic stepped in. "Don't be silly. You must have been dreaming." "I'm not being silly, and I'm not 7 either. I know what I saw, and it slammed shut all by itself." I made placating noises, patted her arm, even made her a hot milky drink. We were on our way back to bed when a little voice piped up. It didn't slam when I saw it open. Poppy, woken by the commotion, stood in the doorway. "What?" we said in unison. "The door. It was open last night as well." "When?" I said. "When I went for a wee." We looked at the door. "I'll have Ronnie and Bobby take a look at it in the morning." We turned to go back to our beds when Poppy said the most chilling thing of all. "Do you think those stairs go up to the attic?" "What stairs?" said Rosie. "The stairs behind the door. If it opens again, I'll pop up and have a look, shall I?" No, don't do that. If it opens again, call me. Or Mummy, okay?" Poppy nodded. I don't know about Rosie, but I didn't sleep any more that night. Ronnie and Bobby popped in first thing at my urgent request. "It couldn't have opened," said Bobby. "I'm telling you it did," screamed Rosie. Ronnie and Bobby looked taken aback. Ronnie, with years of experience with irate customers, calmly said, "Sorry to have to tell you this. This door can't open." "How's that then?" Rosie asked. "Because this door has no hinges. Look." Ronnie pointed to both sides of the door. "See? No hinges." "Doors have got to have hinges if it's going to open," agreed Bobby. Rosie looked, then turned on her heels and walked out. "Thanks," I said at last. "Thanks for coming round." Ronnie or Bobby must have mentioned my door to the regulars in the pub. It started with a ring at my front doorbell. When I answered, there on the doorstep stood my postman. He gave me my letters, then asked if he could see the door. Afterwards, there seemed a steady stream of visitors, all wanting to see the incredible door. What started as a bit of a joke started to get out of hand when a television crew from the local station and a bevy of reporters from the newspapers appeared. They took pictures, interviewed me. Rosie refused any contact with them. Eventually, when everyone's interest had been satisfied, they all moved on to the next big thing. Everything seemed to settle down. Rosie and the children went home. Ronnie and Bobby finished off the decorating. Ethel and Ronnie's relationship blossomed. The newspapers and the television had filled their slots and pages, and all was right with the world. One night, as I was lying in bed, I heard a knocking. At first, it didn't register what it was. Then it did. I shot out of bed. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I knew exactly what it was. I got to the living room and listened. My heart was pounding in my head. I couldn't be sure that I was listening to. What I was listening to. The seconds seemed like hours. You could have cut the tension in the air with a knife. I waited. This was not my heart. It was coming from the door. I stood in front of it. What should I do? Should I knock back? As I pondered what to do, the door opened. Who was there? Who had been knocking? I could feel a vein in my head throbbing. My chest felt like it was going to burst. I looked in at the space. There was no one there. Beyond the door, beyond the open door, looked like the hallway of someone's house. There was a hall carpet of an ambiguous design, the sort that is in households the length of the country. A hall table with a vase, but no flowers. A hall mirror over the table, reflecting the stairs that led upwards. I put my head in and looked left. There were the stairs Poppy had seen. They went up to a landing and then turned right. Where would they lead? I was tempted. Somehow I got the strength. "No!" I shouted and slammed the door shut. I finished off the medicinal bottle of brandy. I've always tried to be a rational person. I've never believed in the supernatural. But then, how can there be a door in a bungalow wall that opens, and behind it is a hallway and a set of stairs leading up? Up to where? And to what? I made a big mistake. I should have kept my mouth shut. Maybe it was too many beers. I mentioned what had happened in the pub, and the next thing I knew, I'd got a a request from the local paranormal activists, or ghost hunters to you and me. They asked, could they come and investigate? I agreed. I wasn't expecting that many, but 7 turned up at 3 in the afternoon. I didn't have the heart to turn them away, and besides, I wanted to know why, and what, and how. It's a long time to the witching hour, I said. We need to set up all the equipment. Lots of preparation. I left them to it, and eventually I went to bed. In the morning, I poked my head through the living room door to tell them I was putting the kettle on. Would they like some toast? 6 ashen, shocked faces looked at me in silence. What did you see? I said excitedly. The door opened, said one. Did you see the stairs? I asked. Yes. Terry went up them. What did he see? At last, I thought, I was going to find out what was going on. We don't know. The door closed. The police came and examined everything. Terry had gone up the stairs with only video camera, and they had no evidence. The police, being logical people, examined the door and the thickness of the wall and concluded there was no space for a staircase, and that the group were suffering from mass hallucination, probably brought on by a dodgy curry or some illicit substances. Terry had just run off somewhere. Either way, Terry vanished and was never seen again. The ghost hunters spent months coming back to see if the door would open and they'd get Terry back, but it never did. I told them that if it did open, I'd be on the phone to them faster than anything. Eventually things quietened yet again, and even the title the press had given my home, Doorway of Doom, died away. Out of the blue, I received an invitation from my daughter. Would I like to stay for 2 weeks? It was only when I arrived that I realized my daughter and son-in-law, surrounded by suitcases, were waiting for a taxi to whisk them away, and I was the babysitter while they sunned themselves on some exotic beach. You never said you wanted me to look after the kids, didn't I? I thought I did. No, if you had, I would have said bring them to me. Poppy has piano lessons and Tommy has chess club. The taxi came, and with a flourish of goodbyes they were gone. The 2 weeks passed quite quickly, and despite being lumbered, Tommy, Poppy and I had a nice time. We got to know each other. All that was swept aside at what I found when I got back home. I knew as soon as I opened the door that something was wrong. The unmistakable smell of stale cigarette smoke hit me in the face. The living room looked like a bomb had hit it. The furniture had been pushed back to the wall. There were many coats thrown onto the settee. Empty lager cans littered the floor, and 2 half-empty bottles of wine stood like bookends on the mantelpiece. Underneath 4 of the dining room chairs were 4 ladies' handbags. It looked like someone had been having a party in Scarped when they heard me return. Come on out, I shouted. There was no answer. I shouted again, moving from room to room. I even went out to the back garden shed and looked. There was no one. I went back into the living room. The handbags stuck out like sore thumbs. Even if they had all left in a hurry, I wouldn't have thought a woman would leave her handbag behind. I always thought they were inseparable. The purse I found in one of the handbags had a name that felt familiar. It was the girlfriend of one of the darts team. In the coats thrown on the settee, I found 3 wallets. They all belonged to members of the darts team. The plot thickened. "I'll have words with you lot when I see you," I shouted. I waited in all the next day, expecting someone to turn up to collect their belongings. I didn't tidy or clean the living room. I wanted them to do it. No one came. That evening I decided to go to the pub to face them. The pub was nearly empty. The topic running around the pub was the rumour that a couple from the darts team, Ronnie and Ethel, had eloped to Gretna Green, and the rest of the team had gone as witnesses. I listened without correction, knowing full well it was unlikely. They were not going to get far without their wallets and purses, etc. Just then a member of the darts team turned up. When Paddy saw me, he turned to leave. "I'm not angry, just curious," I said to his fleeing back. He hesitated. "Buy you a beer?" He sat down and I pushed the pint in his direction. "You left a bloody mess. What happened?" I asked. It wasn't his fault, he explained. They'd had a few in the pub, and someone said, "Let's go ghost hunting." They knew I was away. Ronnie knew where you kept the spare key under the flower pot. "Ronnie?" I said. Paddy nodded. "We took some booze. We were going to make a night of it, waiting to see if that door would open. We were going to tidy up afterwards, honest. So why didn't you then?" "We ran out of beer. We had a whip round and I drew the short straw to go get it. When I got back, there was no one there." My stomach turned. I had a feeling I knew where this was going. "So they buggered off to Gretna Green," I said hopefully. "There is no Gretna Green. That's what someone came up with to account for them disappearing." He took a big swallow of his pint. I started to feel cold inside. I just knew what he was going to say. "I think," he continued, "I think your door opened and they went inside." I stood up and went to the bar and returned with 2 double whiskey chasers. Eventually the police became involved with a mass of missing persons. Visits were made. Had I heard anything? My 2 weeks babysitting away and the house being locked up quashed any rumours that may have surfaced about the door. People eventually put the disappearance down to alien abduction. Well, that was far more likely. Someone said that the aliens must be desperate for a darts team if they had to abduct ours. When they realise just how rubbish they are, they'll bring them back. 10 years came and went without any major occurrences apart from Poppy. Poppy had become troubled. She'd been to university. She'd got a degree, a very clever young lady, but she had problems. She suffered from depression, 2 suicide attempts, self-harming, a call for help. She'd phoned me out of the blue to ask if she could stay for a day or 2. I said yes. I was glad of the company. The first night she was here, she asked about the door. Nothing to say, really, I said. I did see the stairs, you know, she insisted. I know you did. So did I. Her face lit up. You did? Yes. And I'm afraid so did that chap from the Paranormal Society. I read about that. Do you think he went up the stairs? I'm positive he did. We carried on talking till it was late. I made my excuses and retired to bed. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned. Something was wrong. Then it hit me. The request to stay, the questions about the door. How could I have been so stupid? I shot out of bed. When I got to the living room, she was there. The door was open, and she was just about to step in. Don't! I shouted. Got to Grandad. Got to see what's up those stairs. She stepped through. I raced to the door and looked up the stairs. She was on the landing above, just about to turn and climb the next flight that turned the corner. Please, Poppy, come back, please, I pleaded. Got to know, Grandad. I've got to know. What do you see? Just more stairs. I'll shout down and let you know. She disappeared round the bend of the next flight. I heard her say something, but it was muffled. When I called up, there was no response. I wanted to follow, but I was out of my depth. It shouldn't be happening. How can you have a hallway in a cavity wall that's only 2 bricks wide? How can you have stairs to the next floor up when there isn't another floor? I remembered. I dived for the phone and started dialing the Paranormal Society. I'd promised to tell them when the door opened. It rang and rang. As I waited for an answer, I glanced back at the door just as it closed. No! I shouted. I dropped the phone and banged on the door for it to open. I tried to prise my fingers into any crevice to leave it open. I couldn't. I picked up the phone, listening to it ring. I thought of what I was going to say. In the end, I hung up. 5 years have gone by since that night. Poppy had told no one that she was coming to see me. No body was ever found, and I've never told anyone what happened, not even Rosie. It's a doorway to somewhere, and if anyone believed me that people had disappeared through a door that shouldn't be there, they would tear it apart and destroy it. It's there for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but I couldn't allow the destruction of something so magical. The door has been knocking a bit more of late. Most nights I sit in the living room and stare at it. Sometimes it opens, invitingly. Sometimes I shout up the stairs for Poppy and Terry, Ethel, Ronnie, Bobby, and the darts team. There is never any reply. I often wonder why here. Why is there a door in my living room? I've concluded that there is a door like this in every home. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes not. My door wasn't visible till the wallpaper was removed. Maybe it's a shortcut to somewhere. Yes. There's a door like this in every house. You may just see it out of the corner of your eye. Tonight the door opened. I was watching television when it opened. Then I heard a bump. coming down the stairs. I leapt to my feet, expecting someone to appear. But it was a beach ball. Someone or something had rolled it down the stairs. I picked it up. It was a genuine, garishly coloured beach ball, the sort you can buy at any seaside shop, along with your bucket and spade. I picked it up and said out loud, "What on earth?" Then I realised what I had to do. I walked up the stairs. I got to the first landing. I turned right and continued up to the second landing, the third landing, the fourth landing. I could hear seagulls, the swish of the surf as it rolled up and down the beach, and people laughing, having fun. Someone wanted their beach ball back. Hope you liked that. If you did, please click like, subscribe, share me, and I hope you enjoy it. It's fun writing. As I said, it took me ages to think of how I could end this. I hope you agree with the ending. If you've got any ideas how it should be ended, yeah, give me a shout. It's interesting. Also, any literary agents out there? Anyway, thanks very much. All the best now. Bye-bye.